Hello, everybody. Welcome to MRAdio, the men's rights YouTube channel for the UK. We are extremely prepared tonight. Usually, this show should actually be a weekly show, but we haven't been able to do it in the last couple of weeks because
You've been so busy preparing.
we should have had time to prepare. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had.
I've gone onto my Twitter to retweet the link you always tweet out, but you have you tweeted it?
I tweeted it about 30 seconds ago.
Okay.
So maybe you can find it there. Yeah. So unfortunately, I haven't had internet for the last 2 months, and I live in an area where I also don't have cell phone reception or anything. So for the last 2 months, I was pretty much cut off from the rest of the world, and not in a good way. I mean, if you do that intentionally, then you can say, oh, you've got more time, but for us it was just absolute mayhem because we have businesses to run and we need the internet. So it was pretty hard going. But now we're back online, and MRAdio is back online, and I'm joined. My name is Philip Chancer. I'm the founder of Gender Parity UK, and I'm joined as always by the unique Elizabeth Hobson.
Good evening, Philip. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again without disruption and disconnections. Last time it was a proper nightmare with the internet failing, and yeah, we weren't able to hear each other because there was an awful delay.
Too soon. Let's touch some wood on that one.
Exactly. Oh, I've got wood right in front of me. I mean,
and
like
all
here.
Around. Yeah, I know.
All around. Yeah, I've got wood. I've got wood everywhere.
Good wood.
Okay, so we've got a couple of stories for tonight. In the past, we usually looked at newspaper articles. We're going to do a little bit less of that. One topic that I want to look into with you is Caitlin Moran.
Oh, yeah, very interesting. Moran.
Yeah, a feminist who wrote a book about men's issues, and that men have been forgotten in society, and that we have to look at men's issues through a feminist lens. So let's look at that, and if we think that is the right approach, I think you can probably guess our opinions on that. Then we're gonna have a look at.
I disagree. I don't think you can guess my opinion because.
No, I think I can.
Nobody shares it. Can you? Okay, we'll play that game later.
Yeah, I think I can. I hope I can. I hope we agree on that. The second topic is the organization Parity. They had their what's it called? An FGM?
Annual General Meeting.
AGM, exactly. They had their AGM, and Rick Bradford, a friend of ours, he gave a fascinating and brilliant talk, and that talk is available on YouTube, and we want to share that with you guys. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he had to say tonight. Then I would really like to look into the case of Jonah Hill, the actor Jonah Hill, who recently had some issues with his ex-girlfriend, and she accused him of controlling behavior. And I would like to hear your opinion on that, Elizabeth. And at the very end, I would like to talk about actually the men's rights movement, and if the men's rights movement is as toxic as feminism, and if there are certain problems in the men's rights movement, and how strongly connected the movement is to the red pill society or red pill movement. So I would like to talk about that at the end. How do these topics sound to you, Elizabeth?
I was thinking we could talk about soap operas and cushions, scatter cushions, as a woman.
Oh, what wonderful! Yeah, I think that is
No,
totally.
they
That
sound
is,
good. They sound good. I know nothing of women's things.
you know nothing about women.
I do have a line in cushions. That is a lie. I am like, I have serious cushions.
Actually, I do as well. I've got a lot of cushions. What can I say? I used to be
Is
gay.
that woman related?
Pardon? Say again.
Is that woman related, or did you purchase
With the
cushions?
with the cushions. No, I've got a big couch and I've got a lot of cushions for the couch. But they are like when you say cushions, you mean pillows, right?
Well, I don't mean like you buy a couch and it has cushions attached to it. I mean like you go to some kind of place where they sell standalone cushions that.
Yeah, I've got those.
Really?
I've got them. Yeah,
I've
but they're
never
all.
known a man to buy a cushion in my life.
Yeah, but they are 50 shades of brown. I just love brown, so they are just different shades of brown.
Yeah, that's pulling it back more into the
Manliness.
I've got like cheetah cushions, elephant cushions, heron cushions, flower cushions.
I think
I'm some animals, but they're mainly animals and wild type things.
I think we're drifting too much away from the topic. So, this is what I would like to talk about first. The book "What About Man" by Caitlin Moran, and for this book, she was on several TV shows, and she also wrote an article in The Guardian, which I actually would highly recommend checking out, because there's a lot of there are a lot of things that she's talking about in that article. I think that make a lot of sense. What do you think? Or is that the point where I'm guessing your opinion?
Yeah, go on, guess my opinion.
Okay, I think that it's actually good, and I think that I would assume that you think she's on the right path, and we need people like her slowly looking in the right direction, preparing people for men's issues. And I hope that you think she's well-meaning. She just has the wrong solutions because she thinks feminism fixes all.
Well, I never. I didn't expect you to say that at all. That's profoundly disturbing. Are you reading my mind? Yeah. So I haven't read the book. I'd be interested to see what the reviews are like on Amazon, actually. But I believe, like yourself, I was alerted to her having advocated for a minister for men on Newsnight, like a week and a half ago or so?
Yeah.
Which prompted me to go and read the Guardian article that she wrote. Do you remember what the title of that was?
Unfortunately, I don't. By the way, no. Hi Vernon, hi Stephen. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, and also Stephen, I was going to type it, but I can't type and talk. So I'm sorry about the cushion conversation. I won't bring up cushions anymore. I think he was losing the will to live because I was talking about cushions. So yeah, I read the article and I was impressed with the first, or the first 2/3 of that article. Gave me the impression that she had genuinely been listening to boys and men with an open heart, like genuinely concerned, and not doing what feminists usually do, which is listening only for keywords that they can use to berate them. So then she goes on to claim that one of the major issues that are affecting the well-being of men and boys is homophobia, in that men and boys won't share their feelings with each other because they're worried about being perceived as gay. So I got in touch with Eric Anderson, because he's done the research there that shows that that is not a problem we currently experience. So I don't know whether they've...
You mean Dr. Eric Anderson?
Dr. Eric Anderson. So yeah, I mean, that is wrong, but it's very commonly assumed. And I think we mentioned like weeks back that study by people who were desperate to find homophobia in young men. So they were looking up the incidence of the use of the hashtag #NoHomo. And they found loads, and they were like, oh, it's a pandemic of homophobia, how awful. And then they started reading the messages attached to them, and they're all like lads being very supportive and nice and kind and loving with each other. So that was, so there's that. But then, yes, she also made a rallying cry to men and boys to be feminist, because feminism is apparently the solution to men and boys problems. And I've mainly heard from people suspicion about this. They feel like she is shilling and trying to get men and boys on side like some kind of Trojan horse. And I don't think there's any evidence for that. It could be, but I think it's I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, because I think that it is a major ask of her to make that like 180-degree flip and to discard the identity that she's built her entire life. She's built a career on it. Her entire social circle, no doubt, is informed by her feminist identity. So to expect her to just drop it without a struggle is not realistic. So yeah, I hope that she is genuine, and I think that she may be. And I think it's excellent that we've got some of these issues being talked about by someone who is socially acceptable to people that the likes of you and me can't reach. And yeah, I mean, it's shifting the Overton window, isn't it? Like massively, all of a sudden. You couldn't get something like a minister for men discussed on TV. We've had Philip Davies, I think, has mentioned it on the Daily Politics show years ago once, and Andrew Neil just hounded him in a way. I mean, Andrew Neil hounds, but like he really went for Philip. And I think Ben Bradley's mentioned it like in the Commons. It's been on YouTube, it's not, I doubt that would have been picked up on mainstream TV. So yeah, she's completely shifted the Overton window, and it's great. Well done. You anticipated what I think. Yeah.
I can read women's minds. I'm just really good at that. No, I that's actually exactly my opinion. And I was quite appalled by the responses towards her, because they were very bitter, understandably so. I mean, it was women's-plaining, and I think the way the fact that it was usually not in the Guardian article, but in TV shows, it was always two women talking about how man should act and why man commits suicide, and a lot of it was complete nonsense. It was like, oh well, men just don't have the sisterhood, and men don't connect. And I was like, well, if you would leave us the bleep alone, then we could actually have a brotherhood, but you're invading all of our spaces. And as soon as men actually talk about their problems, you say, "Oh, man tears," or you suspect us of like locker room talk or whatever. So
well, yeah, and I mean, there are profound disadvantages within the justice system, the family justice system, education and employment, which if they were affecting women, I don't think we'd criticize them for committing suicide by going like, well, why don't they just talk about it? I think we'd be going, well, that wasn't fair. No wonder she was upset, you know?
Exactly. So I really wish that the responses from people on the men's rights side would have been more positive, saying, thank you, it's a step in the right direction, but your solutions are wrong. Would you like to engage in a conversation? So I don't blame anybody for being bitter, because I think we have every right to be bitter, but I don't think that it helps the conversation. And I think that we pushed somebody who might actually be a potential ally, that we push that person away, because if nobody buys the book, if nobody supports her, neither from the feminist side nor from the men's rights side, if nobody supports them, why would anybody else step out of their comfort zone and actually look at these issues in the future? Now, I don't know when the dates are. Maybe you could look that up for me, Elizabeth, because I have to do all this stuff here with the live stream. Could you look up when she's on tour, when the tour dates are? Because she goes on tour with the book. I think she is currently on tour. Maybe it's already over. And it would be great if somebody could actually go to this tour and maybe give her a copy of the Red Pill movie, or engage with her and say, look.
Sorry. Yeah, so, right, where are we now? The 13th. On Saturday, she's in Edinburgh. On Sunday, she's in Dublin. That's all that's on the Penguin website. There was mention in the Sunday, or in the Times, of a date. I think it was September in Alexandra Palace. But when Swayno Pie phoned them up, they didn't know about it. So let's keep an eye on that. But yeah, no, I quite agree. I think
I might be able to go to Edinburgh on Saturday. So if I manage to go there on Saturday, if it's not fully booked, then I'll let you guys know next Thursday how it was and if I was successful.
Oh, nice. But yeah, no, I'm minded of the Jordan Peterson advice about negotiating in personal relationships, which is that if you ask somebody to do something and they try, you should reward them for trying. If they are moving in the right direction, you reward them. You know, if they manage to hoover the rug finally after weeks, you don't walk in and go, yeah, but you've missed a spot, and what about the dust in the bookshelves and this and that? You know, it's profoundly unhealthy to see someone acting better than they have acted before or recently and to punish them for it. I would be very careful of taking that approach. Certainly not politically expedient.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, before we move on to the next topic, I would like to ask our viewers, what is your opinion on that? So, Stephen and Vernon, please let us know what you think about feminists talking about men's issues. If you have read the article, if you know about her, you can obviously make a comment about this specific case. And we're moving on to the next topic, and the next topic is Rick Bradford's talk in the annual meeting of Parity. I'm just sharing the screen so you can see the video on YouTube. I also put the link below in the description of this video. So, Elizabeth, would you like to say something about the AGM and about the talk in particular?
Yeah, so Parity is like a very old charity. It's been going since the 1970s. And I've been involved with them since it's like post-COVID. Oh wait, the AGM last year. I spoke at the AGM last year, and then was roped into being a trustee on the back of that. But yeah, it's been like quite difficult to rally people together in the sort of post-COVID world where everyone's very used to being at home. And so it was very pleasant to find at the AGM this year. There was actually quite a lot of people there. It was quite well attended. So that was lovely.
Where did it take place?
Well, actually, it takes place at a venue called the Union Jack Club, which is like a social club for veterans and military men, and it's full of
nice.
of like soldiers and like bizarre artifacts and stuff. It's really interesting. Like in the break between the general Parity meeting and my speech last year, I actually got lost because I went for a smoke and found myself like listening to all these war stories. It was brilliant.
Wow.
But Rick's work is just so useful. It's always so important.
Just a second, for those who don't know, Rick Bradford, also known as William Collins or vice versa, he wrote the groundbreaking book, The Empathy Gap, which is a massive book that looks into all the disadvantages and discriminations that men and boys experience, specifically in the UK. And he is famous for, and he also has a website, the Illustrated Empathy Gap, which I would absolutely recommend to subscribe to. And he looks so much into details, and he really looks into everything. Unfortunately, that leads to him always being slightly negatively sarcastic and borderline suicidal.
He's not borderline suicidal. It's just
no, he's not. But my nickname for him is Marvin, because of the android in Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
And when I told him that, he said, "Oh, funny enough, you're not the first one to compare me to him."
Oh, how brilliant. Love it. Yeah.
So I interrupted you, so please tell me about the rest of the talk.
Can I just jump in since you mentioned The Empathy Gap, like the book? Have you read The Destructivists?
The Constructivists?
No, The Destructivists.
No, I have not.
He published that like last year, maybe.
Okay.
And you know how his work is always super dry and full of numbers? You know that?
Yeah.
About his work. Well, this isn't. It's a polemic, and he essentially argues that it is profoundly necessary that we act as though there is a universal, natural truth that we need to, like, immorality, moral truth. Yeah. And so, you know, he talks about how stabilizing like collective religious values are for keeping us all on the same page, and just how catastrophic moral relativism is. And it's all, he refers to some like Christian sort of ideas, but it's not a Christian book. He is not a Christian man, but he argues so effectively that we really need to get our act together and start acting like our actions matter matter. You know,
While
that
while you were talking, I ordered the book.
I reckon you'll enjoy it profoundly. It's excellent.
Brilliant.
So yeah, this talk, I'm trying to remember what he started off with. I think he might have actually started off with the work of the Welsh Both Parents Matter charity, which was very interesting. He did mention, he said that they are a victim of their own success. So the number of people they are helping has shot up dramatically in recent years, although he says it is still just a tiny fraction of the parents who are having going through the family courts in Wales.
Yep.
Although they will talk to anyone who calls, so they do talk to some people who are in England and Scotland. But he went through their methods, which are very, very good. They're, you know, not only giving free legal advice, they're also running like buddy schemes and groups where people can get together to talk, and they are assessing people for mental well-being. And there was another, what was the other test? It's in my phone. They're doing all these, they're filling in a lot of questionnaires with people who call up, and mental well-being, and the other is a scale for loneliness. And Rick, using his remarkable brain, is making sense of all of this data, and he is obtaining evidence that, unlike what feminists suggest, that, well, even if men do experience domestic abuse, it doesn't really affect them. He's finding the proof that it clearly does. And obviously it needs to be reproduced in such a thorough and categorical fashion for it to be, you know, validated. But through his work, there's now the methodology, so it can be very effectively. So I mean, you know, they're really tragic numbers to look at, but it's important work that needs to be done.
And so I think his work with the organization is groundbreaking, and the fact that they collect this data is so valuable. And just like Deborah Powney, who obviously is also like a spearhead in the field of male victims of domestic abuse, and she also did a lot of research. What we need are more organizations actually collecting this data, so that they can actually step forward and go to the government and say, look, we've got data here. We started the research. Can we please get some funding for it? Of course, it's going to take years before something happens, but without some organizations laying the groundwork, it will never happen. So I think that's brilliant. Another thing that he did in this video in the very beginning, he talked about the progress and issues of the men's rights movement of the last couple of years, and I thought that was brilliant. That was, and very analytical. He highlighted the positives. He highlighted where there are new attacks from the feminists, so to speak, and it was almost like, how can I say that, when you look back at a year and you say, that was the year in men's rights. So he did something like that, which I found very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. I had picked up on some bits, actually, probably from his blog, about what went on with the results. You know, the A-level results over lockdown, but the way he presented them it's really astounding. So, you know, essentially the kids were all at home, so it's remarkable that they all came out with better results than kids usually get when they're actually going to school. You know, that seems quite implausible, and that was across the board. But girls did significantly better than boys. The gap between the attainment widened dramatically, and even the subjects in which boys traditionally actually do a little bit better, the girls outperformed them over lockdown. And there was also an interesting note, I hadn't followed it so deeply as to realise that it was actually flagged up, and so it was investigated by Ofqual, who, you know, are responsible for making sure that our exams are all fair and that things are being marked properly and everything. And apparently they looked at it and went, oh yeah, but like, it's fine. And that was about it. Like, you know, the data shows that clearly this is not correct. These results are not indicative of the learning of these children, are they, or students, not children at A level, are they? But yeah, nothing's changed. And he also mentions actually that we've not fully gone back to the old system. We sort of have hung on to some of the kind of COVID practices. So it will be interesting to see to what degree, if any, these sort of practices hang on. And so, you know, I suppose it's like prioritizing coursework over exams and those kind of practices, which are really good for girls. Girls do much better in coursework and boys do better in exams. So yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that a lot of the things that were introduced during the lockdowns are here to stay, because I would say the lockdowns were a bureaucratic wet dream, and the bureaucrats hang on to them. My wife and I, we experienced that in the hospital, where certain rules were introduced in the hospital that they don't get rid of. So, for example, I have a 6-month-old daughter, and my wife is expecting a second child. So I'm going to be a father again in November. Thank you very much. And we had to get a scan, obviously, for the pregnancy. And during COVID, they introduced new rules that children are not allowed in the scan room, and so I'm not allowed in the scan room either, because we have a child. Like, I can't just leave my child in the car or somewhere. So now I can never be with my woman when she gets a scan. And and we try to oppose this, and I actually got into an argument with the nurses, and they said we are just following the rules. And obviously, as a German, I said, yeah, the excuse that we are just following the rules, we in Germany used that, and see where it got us. Just because they're rules doesn't mean that they're just. And yeah, unfortunately they red flagged us now. But hey, so unfortunately, yeah, I think that in school, a lot of these negative aspects of the lockdowns, they're here to stay. And I can only predict that in the future, the whole system will collapse, just like the NHS. I think all the systems going to collapse at one point, and hopefully then boys will do better again. I want to close this topic, but I would like to read some comments from our viewers regarding our first topic, with feminists having an interest in men's rights. Stephen Hatterley wrote, she had written her conclusion before conducting research. I would say I think she has probably such a bias in her mind that she can't conceptualize that her side might be part of the problem or the main problem. And it's very, very difficult to actually wake somebody up from an ideology. You actually have to be hurt by the ideology yourself to go against it, I think, or somebody that you really care about needs to be hurt.
Yeah, not necessarily. I don't think that's the only way to it, but I think that that's a little bit of an uncharitable assumption to make. It is certainly possible that she had written her conclusion before conducting research, but she opens it with a personal story about her interaction, isn't it, with a nephew or something? And I have no reason not to believe that that is what changed her heart. That is a way that hearts are changed. In The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, he describes the method by which most Americans became more accepting of homosexuality was through people they knew and liked, their friends and family, coming out as gay, and that moves them emotionally to be like, well, I like them, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them, and therefore maybe the gays are generally quite all right, which they were. No, they still are. I don't count them in the alphabet generally, not necessarily.
Now there are two more comments, and they were from Vernon. When a staunch feminist starts saying we should care about men and it doesn't involve her completely ditching feminism, I call it a red flag. I read the article. Ultimately, I think counting on her to raise awareness on men's issues is like counting on a vegan to defend meat eaters. All damage, no solution.
I mean, for a start, I will, like, full disclosure, admit, and I think it might still be online somewhere, possibly, that between me being a feminist and being an anti-feminist, there was like this tiny little midway point, and it probably lasted like 2 weeks maximum. But I wrote an article and it was titled something like why every feminist should also be an MRA, because I thought that was a thing that was possible. And yeah, I at that point had put a small amount of time into really committing to feminism. And pretty much as soon as I started interacting with actual feminists, not just the literature, I was finding like a lot of discomfort with who these people were. But she has literally put her life into it and built a career and all kinds. So I think it's really harsh to expect her to completely ditch it so quickly. I mean, and then you've got Camille Paglia still calling herself a feminist. I mean, that I don't understand. And Wendy McElroy, to a significantly lesser extent, Christina Hoff Sommers as well. They're intelligent women, to varying degrees, and very much aware of how men experience the world and bothered about it, and for some bizarre reason, because they're all significantly more intelligent than Caitlin, and so I would expect them to know enough about feminism to see that there's nothing good here, but even they don't. And Vernon, come on, like Camille Paglia, she's a good one, surely.
I think that in society we need people on all levels of the spectrum, and I think we need stepping stones. And I think for a feminist, it is easier to be introduced to men's rights through another feminist, and then maybe the next stepping stone might be Christina Hoff Sommers, and maybe the next one is The Red Pill, who was directed by a feminist. Yeah, exactly. And then you see the light. The problem is that a feminist will never really listen to a men's rights activist, because it is just assumed that we are bad faith actors or that we are liars and so on. So sometimes you need somebody who is who's sitting between chairs, or who opens the door a little bit so that others can walk through. Now, would I trust her? No, I would not trust her. I don't think that or let's say, if she was opening a support group for men, would I send people to the support group? Definitely not, because it would tell them that they have to act like women and that they have to become feminists. But she opened a conversation, and I think shutting her down is the wrong signal. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, if we bear in mind the target audience, they're not only women, it's also, you know, slightly, well, left of centre men. I was going to say something really mean then. Just because she writes about TV, and I think that's banal. But no, there are left of centre men who read her stuff who would have every reason to feel like they are not, like their feelings are invalid and they should not express them because it's wrong. And maybe it's given some of them permission to actually express their feelings or admit that they have them to themselves. You know, I think it's useful. Potentially.
True, but I think for them it actually is most dangerous, because if she says you are allowed to talk about it and the solution is feminism, they are the most likely to believe that and then being led down the wrong path. We have to move on to the third story, and the third story is Jonah Hill. So let me just make that a little bit bigger. So Jonah Hills, for those who don't know, he's an actor, funny guy, a bit chubby, and yeah.
And he's just had a baby with a lovely wife he's got.
Exactly. It is mentioned in the article, so I'm going to go a little bit into this article real quick. So Jonah Hill's ex, Sarah Bradley, just shared a load more screenshots of their alleged text exchanges after he was accused of being emotionally abusive and weaponizing therapy talk. Real quick through certain screenshots. Here they are. So that's the former couple. She is a semi-professional surfer. And the first screenshot that I read was this one. I want to read it out, and probably it's also what you read, but then we're going to look at some more. This is from him, from Jonah. He writes, plain and simple, if you need surfing with men, boundary-less inappropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post sexual pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places, and from your wild recent past beyond getting a lunch or a coffee or something respectful. I'm not, if you need that, I'm not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it, and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership. My boundaries with you based on the ways that these actions have hurt our trust. Was that what you first saw, Elizabeth?
I actually would know nothing about this, except I have this guilty pleasure of watching a guy called Daniel Boland, who is a self-styled gossip bitch. I started watching him because he was bitching about Meghan Markle, and I wanted things to talk to my old people about when I was working in care. And she was a good subject. All the old ladies have an opinion on her. But there was something about him I liked, and as I'm like watching bit by bit, he'll like throw in some little comment about Jordan Peterson, or he did a great analysis of the character Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights, which was honestly excellent. So he's like, I went to him for banal gossip, and I just liked him, and I've been proven correct. But I still listen to him just gossiping about crap like this. So yeah, I did see that, and he actually made a good point that it wouldn't have occurred to me. So those boundaries don't sound particularly outrageous, and the way he presents them doesn't sound particularly threatening. You know, it seems like this is what I need, and you know, if you want to meet that, then we'll continue in the relationship, but if not, let's just not, which sounds like quite a fair, honest way to approach things. But actually, Daniel Boland pointed out that at the age Jonah Hill was, which was sort of mid-30s, it's actually quite naive to imagine that a woman who is doing all of those things will suddenly stop at the click of his fingers, kind of thing. Like, you know, perhaps Jonah should have aimed for a woman who wasn't doing those things already to get involved with, which was a fair point.
Yeah. Okay, I want to give a little bit more context what else happened, because she released more text messages. And so they were in this relationship, and then he made certain demands and said, these are my boundaries, and they broke up. But apparently they stayed really good friends for several months afterwards. And then after, I think, 6 months, he started dating another woman who is now the mother of his child. And after the child was born, and she said she waited with sharing this information till after the child was born because she didn't want to put the mother under stress. But afterwards, she released these text messages because she said it would harm her more it would harm her mental health more to not release them than to release them. So she released the first stuff about the quote-unquote controlling behavior, and after that, now she released more. So for example, that when he started dating his now partner, he informed her, and because they were still friends, they were still communicating, and this was a message that he wrote to her, and I quote, "I know I don't need to, but in the spirit of pure respect and our friendship and appreciation for each other, I did want to be transparent that I did start dating someone recently. I'm sorry if that is painful. It just happened, and I didn't want to not be transparent with you ever, as I care about you," which I think sounds very respectful, very good. And
absolutely, I think it's significantly easier to try not to tell like people that you've had any kind of involvement with these things, but obviously she's going to find out because he's a celebrity, so that seems like a sort of kudos to him for being a man about it and telling her before she found out through Instagram or something.
Yes, exactly. But then she responded later on, not that it's really my business, but out of my own personal chicks before dicks code, if that's headed anywhere other than hookup or fling, I'd appreciate if you make that woman aware of how recently you've been flirting with me, sexting me, and leaning on me for partner-level emotional support. He answered, I'm sorry, what?
You know why I laughed? I actually read ahead of you, and after I got to the end of her like comment, what I thought was, I'm sorry, what? And then I read his comment and I was like, yeah, isn't it?
He continues.
Hang on. Just to clarify, the girl who is complaining that she's been abused by Jonah Hill, she released that. She is showing the world.
Oh yeah.
That.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. I linked the article.
Just like in the toilet.
Yeah. It continues. It continues. Jonah writes, I have been there for you as a friend, which I have made very clear. And not only is it not your business, as I only mentioned it to you out of respect and friendship, but I have not been flirting with you or sexting you in any way where it would be inappropriate at this time to start dating someone. And if anything, I have felt for your change and tried to be a good and supportive friend as you transitioned to a scary new environment. And to be crystal clear, I have not flirted or sexted with you in any way, shape, or form in months, and went to say goodbye to you as a super kind gesture that you seem to have appreciated because it was kind. Now, I don't want to read everything. People can do that in their own time. I linked the article in the description below. But obviously, it's quite a bit of back and forth. Now, what I want to say about this, the way I read Jonah's messages later on, and he, as you read, he's being accused of therapy talk. I wouldn't actually call it therapy talk. I would call it feminist talk. Or so there is a lot of stuff in there with like safe spaces and respect and boundaries. There's a lot of therapy talk, but it's feminist therapy talk. And to me, it sounds like he's subscribing to a feminist mindset. He had a feminist girlfriend. Then he actually put some not feminist boundaries in place because deep down he's still a man who wants his wife to himself and doesn't want his wife to flaunt the merchandise on the internet. And I agree with you. Like, then don't engage with somebody who does that in the first place. If you want to quote-unquote respectable woman, start dating a respectable woman, not somebody who runs around in a thong on Instagram or something. But I think his feminist persona and his male persona collided in the relationship. Then they broke it off. He started dating a new girl, and it sounds like then she was bitter and felt dumped and wanted to destroy his personhood. What do you think about that?
With regards to the bitter woman scorned, 100%. With regards to his feminism or lack thereof, I don't know. I have, and I would very much recommend a film he made called Stutz, Stutz, which is like a series of conversations between him and his therapist.
Okay.
And you know, you may be right, but I know for a fact he certainly is very jacked up on therapy, and the guy that he works with is really cool, and has some good ideas to actually resolve problems rather than just talking about them, which, you know, as we know, is particularly more appropriate for men as compared to just talking therapy. However, what also comes through in that film is that Jonah has struggled with something that I empathize with, which is verbalizing emotions and feelings and boundaries and what you like need and prefer. And when you're someone who is not naturally good at things like that, and then you go to therapy, yeah, you come out talking like a therapist when you approach these things. I know I do it, and I hear myself and I'm like, God, that's so cringe, but it's like, it's what I mean. It's the only way I know how to express it, because I haven't been taught to express it in another way. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Is just the sort of training he's got to therapy rather than like gynocentrism or something.
Yeah, I'm going to put one more. I want to put one more thing up.
As well. Go on.
So he wrote, so she said about the sexting that she actually retweeted to him or reposted to him conversations that they had before, like explicit conversation, and she sent those conversations to him, and they were from, I think, 2 months before. So 2 months before this conversation, which means, sorry, but 2 months before you start dating somebody else, if you still have if you have a sexting thing, sorry, but I think that's absolutely fine. Well, not that I did it, but I don't blame him for it. But he responded to that.
Yeah, it's forgivable, isn't it? It's not beyond the realms of like acceptability.
Exactly, and she participated in it.
Once you meet someone and you get involved, it's like there's the cutoff. You know, anything before is you didn't know that this amazing person was in the world. So,
but his response was, and I read. I read, screenshotting intimate texts between us is a huge triggering violation for me and breach of trust as a friend, as I have explained to you about breaches of trust I have had between trusted friends recently that have caused me trauma. I'm incredibly hurt and feel a lack of safety where I've always trusted you. I'm sorry if a former partner moving on is painful, and I empathize with that. But I have done nothing wrong, and if I wasn't a public person, I wouldn't face this kind of violation. And having shared that with you, and then watching you be like this today, shatters my ability to trust anybody even further. I have always shown you kindness and support. Now, he clearly uses language that we know from the left, I would say, triggering, safe place, and so on. But I think what he explains, and especially after what you were telling me, it makes perfect sense. I think it is therapy talk, but he really expresses his situation, his feelings, what he needs, why certain things hurt him, and the fact that she made these messages public now, I think shows it doesn't portray her in a positive light, and I'm quite surprised that she would publish these, because it makes her look like a cruel person.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, in fairness to his kind of therapy talk, and words like triggering and safety, like, yeah, they do have those woke left connotations now, but actually they are appropriate in some contexts.
In regards with trauma,
you know, if there
PTSD.
yeah, like, you know, what he's talking about, he's not talking about he went into a Target and they had moved a t-shirt he really liked, so now he's triggered and traumatized. You know, he's actually talking about something, you know, a context, an area where those terms might be more appropriate. Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, she is like, wow, that is amazing. What is going on in her head? Like, what does she think that people can see when she is sharing this stuff?
What
Like,
frightens
if you behave like that, surely you would want to hide it. You know what I mean? It's like insane.
The problem is that even if it also puts her into a negative light, just like the Amber Heard case, for example, how could Amber Heard accuse Johnny Depp of domestic abuse when she was very clearly the domestic abuser? And it negatively affected her now as well, but it massively negatively affected Johnny Depp too till today. And Jonah Hill will damage him severely for a very long time, and people will associate him with controlling behavior. Now, I think in regards to this list of things that he needs, I'm actually, while I think that these boundaries are okay, if I would see this list of a similar list of boundaries written by a woman towards a man, I would say, ooh, that might be controlling behavior. So my men's rights activist head, my pro-male bias, makes me excuse his demands. But if I want to, yes, sure.
I've not looked at it from that perspective. I mean, I think that we all have slightly different needs in that regard, and my feeling was that it's within the realms of normal. So, you know, yeah, like some people, men or women, would want them to be a little looser, some might want them to be a little stricter, you know, but it's somewhere within the realms of normality. But I'm interested to look, and I'll just think about what I would think if these were demands on a man that I knew.
So it seems that there were quite a few conversations beforehand between the two of them leading up to this list. So apparently
actually that is a good point, yeah, because he talks about the violations in trust. So that is another good question. Like, and it's interesting that she has released this and she's released subsequent messages, but she's not opening up about what it was that got him to the place where he felt he had to assert boundaries.
Yeah, she did release a certain. She did release certain parts where it says like, I deleted these 2 videos. What else do you want me to delete? And he said something like, and I don't want to misquote it, but something like, well, it would be nice if you could delete everything where your butt is only covered by a G-string. And to be honest, I think in a relationship, I think that's fair. But on the other hand, I would say on her side or on his side, don't date a person who does things that you don't approve of.
Exactly. And I'm not being funny, but it's like, you know, she has some sort of notoriety. So whilst she can delete things from her Instagram in the present, it's like those pictures are going to be elsewhere. You know, you're kind of shutting the, what is it, the barn door after the horse has bolted kind of thing by asking her to take
I think it would be more appropriate to say what's in the past is in the past, but moving forward, could you please not do certain things. So I think I do see a little bit on both sides, but those who say, "Oh, this is very clearly coercive control and he's a monster," which I have seen people saying, I'm like, come on, that's that. I don't think that's a fair
Yeah,
assessment.
and I mean, to be honest, irrespective of whether his behavior crossed that line, and I mean, come on, we're not crossing the line into monster here. We're crossing the line at worst into these people didn't get on well, and he reacted by trying to control, you know, a woman and crossing her boundaries because she needed some level of freedom, and she was apparently deleting images from times past, which, you know, yeah, that could be a sort of traumatic experience for her potentially, but they're separated and he's moved on, and he's got a wife and child, and she's now bringing this into the public. Like, I'm sorry, but that is not about anything other than self-promotion.
Self-promotion,
like,
and to be honest,
talk to her friends or a therapist about it, and like, why did I, you know, continue down that pathway when I knew I wasn't feeling comfortable? Cool, but like, to blow it up and say he's an abuser, like, that is ridiculous.
Yes, and I have actually seen one of our colleagues, Terry White, I think he posted something in regards to this case. I think it was in regards to this case. He said something along the lines that posting these things is actually equivalent to revenge porn, because it's the destruction of somebody's public image. And I actually have to completely agree. And in this case, she's very clearly a perpetrator, because the only reason why she did that was to harm him. That's the only reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's not self-defense. She's not in a situation trying to protect herself. She is a million miles away, could move on. He has.
Yeah. So I wanted to also talk about the men's rights movement, but I think because it's already almost 10 past 10 and I have to go down to my wife and daughter, I think we'll bring it to a close here. I would ask everybody to please like and share this video, and tune in again next week, next Thursday at 9 o'clock. It's very important that you share this podcast so that our numbers grow a little bit. So that would be brilliant. And like every week, we're gonna say that again, Elizabeth?
Sorry, I've been watching Dankula. I said it would really help us in the algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna end our episode like every week with a quick prayer. Who doesn't want to join in, you can just end the video, or you can listen to the prayer or join in. Elizabeth, do you want me to pray for both of us?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Or do you want to? No. How about you start?
I've been saying 2 prayers recently. I've been reciting, and like, I sort of repeat them and meditate on them is my practice at the moment. I say the Fatima prayer, and that is for me, but also for people who really need guidance, you know. And I'm talking about like abusive people, including world leaders. And I also have been saying glory be, and when I recite that, it is I'm thinking about true morality. That's what I think that one's about. So I'll say them in that order.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Oh my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fire of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those in most need of thy mercy. And glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without an end. Amen.
Amen. thank you very much, and see you again next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.